In today's video, we're going to be checking out the new and improved, maybe not improved, Virgin Australia 2.0 with a couple of business class flights from Melbourne to Cairns and then Cairns to Tokyo. We'll go into the history of Virgin a little bit to figure out how they got to where they are now. We'll also look at the future plan for Virgin Australia and why this Tokyo flight doesn't really fit into that plan, but why it's probably still in their best interest to do this anyway. So we're back at Melbourne Airport today, flying Virgin Australia, going to Tokyo. I've not flown Virgin Australia in years. I've never flown business class Virgin Australia. I did a bit of a hustle to fly this with some points. Yeah, let's check it out.
Good morning, how are you going?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks. Where are you heading off to?
Tokyo via Cairns.
Via Cairns?
Yeah.
That's a pretty cool bag.
Yeah, that's why I bought it, I guess, yeah.
For
Yep,
this part,
8:15
okay.
is it? All right, I got 25. All right, perfect.
Fantastic.
Thanks for
Have
that.
a great time.
Thanks. She was lovely. I got here at 7:40 for an 8:40 flight. It's domestic though, so we're good. Australia is not perfect, but airport security here is ridiculously easy. I got 15 minutes. Let's go eat breakfast in the lounge. Cool. That was easy. You don't even have to talk to anyone. Okay, what do we have? Nutrigrain? It's incredibly light, airy, quiet in here. It's a very nice lounge. I've been sticking around Qantas too much. Virgin might actually be alright. Yeah, overall the catering in here is like fine. It looked good initially, but then like when you actually look at it a bit more, you go, only half of the whole buffet section has food. I mean, they had scrambled eggs, and then these potato croquette things, but that was it. In terms of hot food, no bacon, no sausages. I don't like the Qantas lounge, you usually get that, but we're not comparing. They had like muesli and fruit salad and then like toast and a pancake machine, so it'll do. You won't be hungry. The lounge is really nice, like really nice chairs. Like I'm off in the corner here. Nicely appointed lounge, much more nicely appointed than the Qantas lounge, but I think there's definitely some cost cutting going on with the food. I just want to touch on this cost cutting and more generally what is going on with this whole new Virgin Australia 2.0 that we have today. The overly simplified story here is basically pandemic happens, people can't fly, airline goes bankrupt, private equity comes in, airline flies again. I'm going to suggest something a little bit different to you. I think this was pretty much bound to happen with or without the pandemic. Virgin Australia had been struggling to turn a profit for the 10 years before the pandemic and was on a slow death march to bankruptcy anyway. So what was going wrong? Why couldn't they make any money? Let's just go through a super compressed history of Virgin Australia in order to understand and answer these questions. The airline started in 2000 as a low-cost carrier with just 2 737s. The airline was founded by, obviously, Richard Branson and a guy called Brett Godfrey. Godfrey was an Australian who prior to this was CFO of Virgin Atlantic. He became the founding CEO of what some of you might remember was called Virgin Blue, not yet Virgin Australia. They got really lucky here with the timing. About a year after they started, Ansett Australia, which was Australia's second largest carrier at the time, collapsed, leaving a humongous void in the market that Virgin Blue could expand into. This is essentially all that happened in the first decade. They expanded to become Australia's second largest domestic airline. Business was good, they were profitable, and towards the end of the first decade, they started to expand internationally, acquiring Boeing 777s to do so. I've got to quickly talk about Qantas here. In 2003, they launched Jetstar as a low-cost competitor to Virgin Australia.
Let's fly Jetstar!
Jetstar. All day, every day, low fares.
Alan Joyce, a man we all know and probably don't love, was tasked with growing this airline inside of Qantas. At the time, a senior Qantas executive by the name of John Borghetti was in charge of the premium Qantas brand. It's sort of known now that Borghetti and Joyce were internally pitted against each other in a contest between the orange-tailed Jetstar brand and the red-tailed Qantas brand. This internal contest led to growth all round, but became a bit of a problem when the whole Qantas group needed a new CEO in 2008. The two frontrunners for the job were Alan Joyce and John Borghetti. As we all know now, Alan Joyce ended up getting the job and Borghetti left Qantas shortly after. Now, back to Virgin. In 2010, Brett Godfrey pieced out from Virgin and Borghetti was brought in to replace him. There was obviously a bit of bad blood between Borghetti and Joyce, and when Borghetti joined Virgin, he brought with him a posse of Qantas staff and quickly rebranded the airline as Virgin Australia.
It's a move away from the mostly red-dominated aircraft that we're used to seeing, so we're all just anxiously awaiting to see what Richard Branson has in store.
A full premium competitor to Qantas. This is where the fun begins. A big capacity war between the two airlines raged for years. Both lost a ton of money domestically trying to gain and retain market share. Over the long term, Qantas definitely won out here. Virgin ended up taking on a bunch of investment from global airlines in order to fund this battle. but this left them in what I consider now to be a pretty terrible position in the mid-2010s. In 2016, Air New Zealand had a 22.5% stake, Etihad had a 21.8% stake, and Singapore Airlines had a 20.1% stake in the airline. This really was a situation of having too many cooks in the kitchen and led to the international arm of Virgin Australia having no real clear strategy, or at least a large part of their strategy was being dictated by their part owners. There was constant talks of insolvency towards the end of the last decade, and Virgin Australia was just barely scraping along. The pandemic-driven bankruptcy and subsequent acquisition by Bain has allowed them to clear house and remarkably return to profitability in 2023. They've stopped the majority of their international routes except for Bali, a few Pacific Island destinations, and Tokyo. Yes, Tokyo. Definitely seems like a strange outlier here. We'll get into why they're flying to Japan shortly. And whilst I think Bain is definitely in this just to make some quick money flipping an airline, it still might lead to a stronger Virgin Australia overall. Let's go see what Virgin Australia 2.0 is all about. Oh yeah, weird camera thing. Okay, so I'm in the front toilet. It's a business class toilet. It's a 737. Pretty much nothing to say here. There's nothing, there's soap, obviously. No special moisturizers. We do have a sharps receptacle, so you don't usually see that on a plane. Seems like Virgin Australian business class is pretty basic. The seat is pretty much the same as Qantas domestic. There's no entertainment on this flight. She apologized for that and said, you probably want to download your shows before we leave, but she said that like 3 minutes before we took off, so you didn't actually have time to do that if you want to do that, I guess. So yeah, that's not great. So I don't know what the entertainment is. I really hope the flight to Cairns has entertainment, because that's like a 7-hour flight, and I'm not prepared for that. Like, this is a 3-hour flight, so it's okay. Generally, it's comfortable enough. It's weird, there's no barrier between business class and economy, so you just look straight through. There's no curtains. A little bit weird. Food's about to be served, so I'm looking forward to that. Let's see what that's like. Okay, so it's not bad. The whole portion of egg wasn't that big. It was just one piece of sourdough and like edamame on the side or something. It tasted alright, just wasn't that big. And yeah, the sourdough was not bad. It was just really soggy. Not the best thing I've ever eaten on a plane, but I'm kind of hungry, so I'm appreciating it. And so the other parts were, it's like pecan cake. Pecan? That was fine, but it's just cake for breakfast. And then they had like date nut ball things, which kind of weren't good at all. I really would have appreciated one of those really anemic fruit platter things, ones where it's like 3 pieces of fruit. Would have liked one of them, but anyway, not terrible, but not good. As I said earlier, in the toilet, there was no in-flight entertainment. I didn't preload anything, and I was pretty tired from the night before, so I just napped all the way to Cairns. Overall, the seat, it's pretty much just a standard Australian domestic business class seat, so a lot better than what they've got in Europe.
Brother, what's that, brother?
But pretty similar, on par with what you get in America, I think. I did find the legroom a little annoying. I was in the front row. You've got 38 inches of pitch, but the wall is right there, so your feet can't go under the seat in front of you. I couldn't really straighten my legs out. It's a pretty small thing and completely fine for this sort of 3-hour flight.
If you are continuing with Virgin Australia to Tokyo Haneda today, make your way to the international terminal.
Welcome to Cairns. We're walking from the domestic to the international terminal. I don't know if there's much of an international terminal here, but maybe there's a bit more going on here than I originally thought. Got Air New Zealand, Air Guinea, Singapore Airlines, Virgin Australia, and Jetstar. But I also see a China Eastern plane. It's more than none. Singapore Airlines is a bit random, isn't it? I'm once again having a drink.
You will not have the drink.
I like the sign over there. It says, are you carrying more than $10,000 in or out of Australia? I wish that was a problem, that I had to think about. And manifest that one for 2024. That's a National Geographic plane. Maybe is that? Nat Geo jet.
If anybody wants to sponsor me, I'll be more than happy to make some videos about this. Hit me up on Instagram.
Made it through the airport and everything. I'm in Cairns International Terminal now. Not a fan. It's just not much going on. There's like 3 cafes. They're all very overpriced. There's no lounge. I sound like such a wank. But yeah, everyone just flies to Tokyo from here. So Jetstar has 2 flights. Virgin has 1 flight. So yeah, Jetstar runs Dreamliners, but Virgin runs a 737-8 MAX. Single aisle plane for 7 hours, or 7.5 hours. It's chaotic.
What's the deal here? What's with this flight? As I said earlier, we now have this new Virgin Australia 2.0, and the biggest change for the airline was the decision to get rid of its long-haul flights and instead just focus on Australian domestic flights and shorter-haul international flights to places like Bali and New Zealand with an all-Boeing 737 fleet. In doing so, they disposed of their A330s and 777s. So, on paper, it's a little bit weird that they decided to launch this sort of long-haul flight to Tokyo, especially with a 737 MAX. Virgin Australia was due to launch flights between Brisbane and Tokyo in 2020 with an Airbus A330 after winning a highly prized, highly sought after slot at Tokyo's Haneda Airport. Obviously, some things happened and they put a pause on launching this flight. 2023 rolled around and they were essentially given an ultimatum: start the flights to Haneda or lose the slot. But there's a small issue. They don't have the A330s anymore. So their only real option was to fly this route from Cairns with their 737 MAXs. Things were even more complicated when they launched this route due to, common at this point, Boeing delivery delays.
Well, and this is, you know what this is. Where the good times happen.
They didn't even have the 737 MAXs in time to launch this flight. They had to launch the flight by the end of June in order to keep the slot, but they didn't have a 737 MAX to actually fly the route. So they used a 737-700 that they could only operate half full, otherwise they wouldn't make the distance. So that was the first month of this route, but towards the end of July of 2023, they finally started operating this route with full capacity with the 737 MAX. These MAXs have a range of 6,570 kilometers. Cairns to Tokyo is 5,837 kilometers. So you could say that they're really maxing out these jets. I imagine this route is pretty easy to fill for Virgin. You just got to price it right and people will be willing to make the connection in Cairns. But overall, this kind of goes against the spirit of getting these slots, in my opinion. Obviously, the original intention was that they'd be flying an A330 that has significantly more seats than a 737 MAX. And so generally, for the total market between Japan and Australia, the total number of seats available, this isn't really a good thing. It's seemingly a bit of a band-aid in order to keep the value of Virgin Australia up, keep their valuable assets, sort of. That's sort of what a slot becomes. It becomes an asset to an airline in this sort of case. So I can totally understand from their perspective why they're doing this, but I think overall it's one of these net negatives, even though it's a net positive for Virgin Australia themselves. Anyway, what's it like sitting on a 737 for 7.5 hours? Let's go and find out.
7.5 hours in this thing. Let's do it.
Welcome aboard. Security flags in lockers. And hi, Alexander.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You.
Oh, just up there.
But no, I don't want to put any pressure on you.
Which seat was it? Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect.
So I selected 2F when I was picking my seats. I just wanted to try sort of that second row. But if it wasn't clear there, I got asked if I wouldn't mind swapping to 1A. There was a Japanese family that just wanted to sit together. It's not that big of a deal, really. There was a bit of deja vu, though. I ended up with the same seatmate as on the Melbourne to Cairns flight. I actually talked to him on this flight too, so that was good. The flight was delayed for 30 minutes due to baggage loading issues. The cabin crew were great, though, here. They handed out the business class passengers all packets of chips. Now, I did say before that there's no barrier between business class and economy, so I found it incredibly awkward. There was a symphony of chip eating sounds coming from the 8 of us in business class while everyone in economy just sat back there kind of watching. I don't know. I found it really awkward. You might not, though. After that quick packet of chips, we were off for a very beautiful departure out of Cairns.
I'm back in the front toilet. This is a 737 MAX now, -8 MAX. It's a pretty small lavatory. Got mirrors galore though. We got one mirror there, one mirror there, one mirror here. I don't think I've ever had 3 mirrors in a toilet before, but apart from that, we got the same hand wash, air freshener. The ground is absolutely... The floor is kind of filthy, but that's not the crew's fault. We took off 10 minutes ago, so someone's just made an absolute mess in here. It wasn't me. It's pretty much the same lab, except the design's a little bit more modern, I guess. Also, I am getting a bit of a gerrymandered service, favoured service, because I got a mate that works for Virgin Australia and he let the head cabin crew know that I'm on board today. He said basically they can't do anything more because I'm already flying business, right? But I mean, she came and got my meals order first. She might have anyway because I'm in 1A. I don't know. This might be a little bit of an influenced video. I'm not paid. Look, I paid for this ticket. I'm just being fully transparent with what's happening today.
I was a bit bamboozled on this flight and didn't end up saying much. I did take some notes though, so let's run through them now. The first meal service was interesting. There were some almonds to start. They were honestly pretty terrible. They weren't roasted or salted, but that was followed up by a Japanese style bento box with a miso soup on the side. Everything here was good, and there was some added fun factor in the general arrangement. The dessert was a baked cheesecake, and I had some tea with it. All around, the first meal service was decent. It was respectable, except for the almonds. Now, the entertainment. Luckily, it actually worked on this leg. It's all streamed to your device. It works pretty well, and they have a good-sized selection of movies and TV shows. I'd say they have a marginally wider selection than, say, Jetstar, but nowhere near as broad as the likes of Qantas, Emirates, Qatar. For TV shows, they had full seasons, but not full box sets, so they only get half points there. But still, you probably won't get bored here, even on a 7-hour 737 flight. These seats are obviously pretty new. They've only had the 737 Maxes for less than a year now. Generally, the seat's just a nice leather recliner. The actual amount of recline is fine for this sort of day flight, but I wouldn't pick this as my seat of choice for the overnight return flight. It's essentially just a premium economy seat, but in this case being branded as an international business class seat, which for the price is okay. Or is it? We'll get to that in a minute. The one thing I did really like on this seat was the tray table. It was very simple, but it just had this little pop-up phone tablet holder. The angle was probably a little low, but I much preferred resting my phone here versus having to hold it while I was watching TV shows. Okay, 3 things that I just want to quickly touch on. Firstly, they did give us a blanket and pillow. They were about as average as it gets. There was also an amenity kit. Again, super basic. Second, there was power. There was an AC power outlet plus a USB. As I'm on an ardent mission to test every single USB port in the sky, let's look at that now. You're able to get 7.5 watts. It's nothing crazy fast. It would have been nice to see some really nice fast charging, especially because this is a brand new seat, brand new plane. But oh well, this clearly isn't the most premium of premium business classes, so
lower your expectations a lot.
And then finally, just the noise in the 737. It's not ridiculously loud, but it's definitely not quiet. This is no A350. About 2 hours out from Tokyo, there was a small second meal service.
Alright, so I'm in the rear lavatory right now. It's a similar design to the one at the front, except yeah, we got more headroom. I think this toilet's actually cleaner than the other one at the front. Considering this is an economy toilet for 160 people or something, 140 people, I don't know. We just had the second meal service. It was pork goiza, pork goiza. It was good. The actual pork goizas were really nice. But the thing that I'm noticing with Virgin Australia specifically is that it's like they'll give you a main dish and then the sides are just like not very existent. You know, like a lot of airlines, you'll get like a main and then you'll have like a side salad and maybe some bread or something. Here it was just the goizas. Can't I pronounce it right now? Anyway, you know what I mean. And then there was a chocolate cookie and a lint ball, like a lint chocolate. It's nice. The service has been really good on Virgin Australia. The seats are a little bit, and the food's a little bit. But I guess we can talk about the whole overall value of this. We'll get to that towards the end of the video.
Every speck of weather is impeccable when you are near. And that's the truth, my dear.
Value, money, points. Let's talk about it. I booked this flight using Virgin Velocity points. It was 71,500 points and about 200 Australian dollars in fees. Now, I don't generally collect Velocity points and ended up buying these during a Velocity point sale that Virgin Australia had going on in December of 2023. I bought 130,000 points in total for 1,825 Australian dollars. So, if we do some quick maths, the cost per point was 1.4 cents. And so I basically ended up paying $1,200-ish for this flight, including the fees. This was not amazing value. You can buy a cash money version of this ticket for about $1,600. But I ended up using the rest of these Velocity points for other flights, like the Singapore one last week and next week's flight. And both of those had significantly better value. So in my head, I can kind of justify the blended cost. Anyway, should you book this flight? My answer here will pretty much always be no. There are direct flights from most Australian cities with either GEL or ANA. Both of these airlines have incredible economy class seats and outstanding service. They're generally about $1,000 cheaper too, and look, I'll happily suffer through some of the world's best economy seats to save $1,000. You'll also save a few hours of your life because they fly direct. And well, time is pretty much invaluable. But look, if you really want to transit through Cairns, then fly Jetstar. I did their business class last year and have to say that it's pretty similar, if not slightly better than Virgin Australia business class. They both have basically premium economy seats, but Jetstar is probably a tad better due to the fact that you're on a comfier Dreamliner. I quickly looked at the prices for Jetstar and they seem to be a few $100s cheaper on average as well. I'm definitely not trying to say that Virgin Australia is bad. Look, their service is great, super friendly, but you can kind of just look at the essence of why they're flying this route as to what sort of experience you're going to have. They're not doing this to try to compete against Qantas, GEL, ANA by offering a really fantastic service to Japan. One of the main reasons they're doing this is to keep slots. I'm glad that I've ticked off Virgin Australia now. I don't think I have to try them again, at least currently in their current form. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. I hope you got something out of it. Subscribe for more stuff like this. Check out flightformula.com, pretty much only if you collect Qantas frequent flyer points at this point. I've built out some tools there in order to get points and spend points. There's nothing for velocity points yet, though who knows? That might come in the future. Anyway, I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.